Howard Hughes, a name that echoes with ambition, genius, and madness. The dark obsession of Howard Hughes, money, power, and paranoia. Howard Hughes, the name synonymous with ambition, brilliance, and self-destruction. A man who conquered the skies, revolutionized Hollywood, and built an empire. But beneath the glitz and glamour lay a troubled genius, a man consumed by obsession. How did he rise to the top, and at what cost? Howard Robard Hughes Jr. was born in Houston, Texas in 1905 into a life of privilege. His father, Howard Hughes Sr., invented a groundbreaking oil drilling bit that made the family wealthy. But young Howard wasn't content to live in his father's shadow. By the age of 11, he built his first motorized bicycle, showcasing an early knack for engineering. His precociousness extended beyond mechanics. While other kids played with toys, Howard envisioned ways to innovate and create. Howard's mother, Aline, was protective to the point of obsession, instilling in him an acute awareness of health and hygiene that would later manifest in his life as paranoia. But it was his father's brilliance and drive that left the deepest mark. The elder Hughes Sharp Hughes Tool Company transformed the oil industry, providing young Howard with a front-row seat to innovation and success. Tragedy struck when Howard lost both his parents before he turned 20. His mother's death from complications during a medical procedure and his father's unexpected demise from a heart attack left him orphaned but immensely wealthy. Inheriting the family fortune and the tool company, Howard became one of the richest young men in America. But the weight of his loss fueled a deep-seated determination to make his mark on the world. With unimaginable wealth at his fingertips, the world was Howard Hughes's playground. Yet, his restless ambition and a desire to eclipse his father's legacy would propel him into a whirlwind of innovation, fame, and infamy. The question remained, how would this genius harness his newfound power? In the 1920s, Hughes set his sights on Hollywood. The young tycoon financed and directed Hell's Angels, a revolutionary aviation war epic. With a production budget that ballooned to nearly $4 million, Hughes's relentless perfectionism drove the project to delays and chaos. When it finally premiered in 1930, audiences were awestruck. Hell's Angels was a box office sensation and a technical marvel, cementing Hughes's reputation as a daring visionary. But Howard Hughes wasn't just a filmmaker, he became a larger-than-life figure in Hollywood. Women adored him, men envied him, and the press couldn't get enough. He had an undeniable charisma, a magnetic pull that made him the darling of Tinseltown. Yet, beneath the glitz and glamour, a darker side lurked, a man willing to bulldoze anything or anyone in his way. Hughes's perfectionism, while producing masterpieces, often bordered on obsession. He demanded reshoots, defied studio norms, and pushed his crews to their limits. Those who worked with him admired his genius, but feared his wrath. By the late 1940s, Hughes had bought RKO Pictures, one of Hollywood's major studios. But his reign was anything but smooth. Employees found themselves under constant scrutiny, with massive layoffs and budget cuts, reflecting Hughes's relentless drive for control. As Hughes's Hollywood career soared, so did his ambition. But the skies called to him, and his next venture would take him to dangerous new heights. Aviation wasn't just a hobby for Hughes, it was an obsession. From an early age, he was captivated by the idea of defying gravity. And as his wealth grew, so did his ambition. In 1932, he founded the Hughes Aircraft Company, assembling a team of the brightest minds to create cutting-edge technology. His determination to lead the pack in aviation innovation knew no bounds. By 1937, Hughes had set a new transcontinental speed record, flying from Los Angeles to New York in just 7 hours and 28 minutes. This feat didn't just showcase his skills as a pilot, but cemented his reputation as an aviation pioneer. But Hughes wasn't done. The very next year, he completed a record-breaking around-the-world flight in just 91 hours, becoming an American hero overnight. Hughes's meticulous attention to detail drove his aviation projects. He personally oversaw every aspect of the Hughes H-1 Racer, a plane that shattered the world airspeed record. This was no ordinary businessman. Hughes was a hands-on innovator who lived and breathed aviation. Perhaps his most ambitious project was the H-4 Hercules, an enormous wooden cargo plane designed during World War II. Critics doubted it would ever fly, and the project became a source of public ridicule. But Hughes was determined to prove them wrong. In 1947, against all odds, the Spruce Goose flew for the first and only time, a brief but historic moment that silenced his skeptics. Yet while his achievements soared, Hughes's personal life began to spiral. His perfectionism evolved into paranoia, and his relationships with colleagues and loved ones suffered. The man who seemed invincible was slowly succumbing to the weight of his obsessions. For Howard Hughes, the sky was no longer the limit. But as his empire expanded, so did the cracks in his psyche. How far could he push before everything came crashing down? Howard Hughes didn't just want to win, he wanted to dominate. His control over RKO Pictures showed his ruthless side as he cut jobs and slashed budgets to maximize profits. But perhaps his most cutthroat move came in his battles with competitors like Pan Am. In 1947, Hughes faced a government investigation into his use of taxpayer money for aviation projects. His defiance in the hearings became the stuff of legend. The Hercules was a monumental achievement, he declared. But privately, Hughes's mental state was unraveling. Hughes was relentless in his quest for dominance. When Pan Am sought to establish a monopoly on international air travel, Hughes fought back fiercely. He launched a legal battle, accusing Pan Am of conspiring with government officials to eliminate competition. His aggressive tactics earned him enemies, but they also showcased his unwavering determination to protect his empire. Behind closed doors, Hughes's behavior grew more erratic. He became obsessed with secrecy, creating layers of bureaucracy to shield his decision-making. His empire expanded into real estate, hotels, and more, but his obsession with control led to constant conflict with business partners and government regulators. Howard Hughes emerged victorious in many of his battles, but the cost was immense. As his fortune grew, so did his isolation. His paranoia deepened, and soon, the man who once ruled the skies would retreat into a prison of his own making. By the 1960s, Howard Hughes had become a shadow of his former self. He locked himself away in luxury hotel suites, moving between Las Vegas, the Bahamas, and Nicaragua. Rarely seen and never photographed, he was a phantom controlling his empire through handwritten memos. Once the charming, larger-than-life tycoon, Hughes now lived in darkness, literally and figuratively. His obsessive-compulsive tendencies spiraled out of control. Hughes's fear of germs became all-consuming. He wore tissue boxes on his feet, refused to touch anything directly, and burned his clothes if he suspected contamination. Surrounded by a small team of aides who catered to his every whim, Hughes's world shrank to the confines of his suite. Meanwhile, the empire Hughes had built began to crumble. The aviation division that once symbolized his ingenuity was sold off. Real estate ventures stagnated, and his other businesses fell into disarray as he refused to meet with executives or make timely decisions. Lawsuits piled up, and his fortune diminished. Hughes's health deteriorated as he succumbed to malnutrition and drug addiction. His once vibrant appearance faded into a ghostly visage, his body ravaged by years of neglect and painkillers. By the time of his death in 1976, at the age of 70, Howard Hughes weighed barely 90 pounds. The coroner's report described his body as unrecognizable, the remnants of a man consumed by his obsessions. Howard Hughes's legacy is a paradox, a man who reached unparalleled heights of success, yet fell victim to his own mind. His life remains a cautionary tale about the perils of ambition, unchecked by balance, and the destructive power of isolation. Howard Hughes's story ended in solitude, but the echoes of his genius and madness still resonate. What does his journey teach us about the thin line between brilliance and obsession? Howard Hughes lived a life of extremes, from the heights of innovation to the depths of despair. He was a visionary who shaped industries but couldn't escape the demons within. His story serves as a cautionary tale about the price of unchecked ambition. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Howard Hughes' life, make sure to check out more on Pioneers of Profit. Like, share, and subscribe to hear more stories of the entrepreneurial spirit.